California has enacted a groundbreaking law prohibiting most law enforcement officers, including federal agents, from wearing masks that conceal their identities while on duty. This legislation sets the stage for a significant legal confrontation between the state and the federal government. On Saturday, September 20th, 2025, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 627, known as the No Secret Police Act, into law. This measure responds directly to the Trump administration's intensified immigration enforcement actions within the state. The bill was specifically prompted by recent events in Los Angeles, where federal agents wearing masks and using unmarked vehicles conducted mass arrests, including the detention of bystander day laborers. These actions led to widespread community fear and protests. Proponents of the law argue that masked officers erode public trust, making it difficult for citizens to distinguish between legitimate law enforcement and criminals. Governor Newsom described the sight of these masked agents as something out of a dystopian sci-fi movie. The No Secret Police Act is comprehensive. It prohibits law enforcement from wearing face coverings like ski masks, balaclavas, or neck gaiters that obscure their identity during operations. Furthermore, it mandates that officers must be clearly identifiable by their name and badge number. This rule applies not only to local police and county sheriffs, but also to federal agents, such as those from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, when they are operating within California. However, the law includes several important exceptions. The ban on masks does not apply to SWAT team operations or to officers involved in approved undercover assignments. It also permits the use of protective gear for safety reasons, such as N95 medical masks, respirators, motorcycle helmets, or face shields. Notably, the law does not apply to state-level law enforcement agencies like the California Highway Patrol. The law, set to take effect on January 1, 2026, establishes clear penalties for violations. An officer who unlawfully wears a mask can be charged with an infraction or a misdemeanor. More significantly, the law allows individuals to personally sue officers for civil rights violations, such as assault or false arrest, if those acts are committed while the officer is illegally masked. Such a lawsuit could result in civil damages of at least $10,000. Law enforcement agencies have until July 1, 2026 to create and publish their own written policies regarding the use of facial coverings. This new law is part of a larger suite of bills signed by Governor Newsom aimed at counteracting President Trump's immigration policies. California's Democratic leadership has openly framed these actions as a form of resistance to protect immigrant communities from what they describe as tactics designed to instill fear. Supporters, like the bill's author Senator Scott Wiener, argue that law enforcement accountability is impossible when officers look like anonymous paramilitary forces. Hector Villagra of the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Educational Fund stated the law protects residents from the fear and confusion caused by masked, unidentified individuals snatching people off our sidewalks. Proponents also believe the law will help prevent criminals from impersonating police officers. On the other side, there is strong opposition. The Department of Homeland Security has called the bill despicable. Federal officials argue that masks are a necessary tool to protect officers and their families from retaliation and from having their personal information exposed online, a practice known as doxing. Acting U.S. Attorney Bill Esaili has stated that California has no legal authority over the federal government and that federal agents will continue to take measures to protect their identities. Local law enforcement unions in California have also voiced their opposition. The Peace Officers Research Association of California, for instance, argues that the law will unfairly impact local police officers, who they say will become collateral damage in a political struggle between the state and the federal government. They believe federal agents may simply ignore the state law, while local officers will be forced to comply, potentially endangering them and hurting recruitment efforts due to the increased personal liability. The passage of this law sets up an almost certain legal confrontation. The federal government is expected to challenge the law in court immediately. The central legal question will revolve around the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution, which generally holds that federal laws take precedence over state laws.
The courts will have to decide whether a state has the authority to regulate the on-duty conduct and equipment of federal officers operating within its borders. Beyond the legal fight, there are practical questions about how California will enforce this ban, particularly on federal agents if they are ordered by their superiors to disregard it. Some legal experts suggest that, much like previous California laws aimed at limiting federal immigration enforcement, the practical impact of this ban might be limited. However, they also acknowledge its powerful symbolic importance, offering what they call hope and optimism to communities that feel under fire. This mask ban was not an isolated action. It was signed alongside other new laws designed to protect immigrants. These include measures that require officers to identify themselves, prohibit immigration agents from entering schools and non-public areas of hospitals without a warrant, and require schools to notify their communities if immigration enforcement is on campus. Together, these laws represent a coordinated effort by California to create a firewall against federal immigration policies. As this No Secret Police Act moves toward its effective date, the nation will be watching to see how the conflict between a state's push for transparency and the federal government's security concerns plays out.